What do feelings mean to you? Like, how do you process feelings? And I know we're going to talk more about that in emotional intelligence, but when we create a barrier to feeling our feelings, that creates a stuckness, an emotional stuckness, and a stuckness in energy. And so when we have that energy stuckness, we can't get through what we need to get through emotionally. This is more about men's mental health. You don't have to necessarily talk about your own, but what you've witnessed, what you've experienced, any stories that you have. So this is about the deep conversation.
You know, so we've talked a bit about staying physically fit and active to manage to some degree our physical health. So the points you were talking about there that are related to how do I deal with what I know about my mental state, how do I look after that, maybe is a good starting point personally.
So how do you look after your mental state? Each of you.
With regards mental well-being, everybody talks a lot about stress these days, don't they? Everybody's stressed. My grandfather, who was on the Jarrow March as a boy with an uncle, used to say, "There's no such thing as stress. You're all just soft." And while I don't agree with that, there is a tendency these days for everybody to say, I'm stressed, when maybe what they mean is I'm under a lot of pressure and I don't know how to deal with it. So personally, I know myself that I need quite a bit of time on my own, and I have taken the decision, or a set of decisions in my life, to be married with little kids, which is kind of the exact opposite of what I've just said. So my way of dealing with it is kind of counterproductive, I suppose, because I stay up quite late at night, and that gives me 3 or 4 hours after everybody else in the house is in bed, and I either do work or I watch films or I sit and waste time playing cards on my phone. But it's my time, and I don't answer to anybody for it usually. And that kind of keeps me in balance in terms of recharging those energy batteries that you seem to have in terms of mental well-being, and dealing with pressures that you face, and it gives quiet time to think. And although, like I say, it's a bit counterproductive because I'm quite often tired in the day, but you know, I deal with that, and that's the price that I am willing to pay to get that time on my own that I know that I need. But it's a good example, I suppose, of kind of shooting yourself in the foot to do it. But it's what I need to do at the moment. And as a father of young kids, like I say, their time, you know, they need the time with family to be on their terms, really. So yeah.
I guess just you've made me maybe think of several things there, but the doing something on your own terms, and also as a part of a ritual. The one for me is actually where I will straddle your world of football and your intense dislike of football. In that I actually do go to the football every other week, and that's just me spending 2 hours just looking at a bunch of silly people running around kicking a ball about. So I'm not hugely emotionally invested in it. It's just something that I've paid for, that actually I just go there and just turn my mind off and get a bit of mindless entertainment. And I don't get too wound up about it. And it also reminded me, thinking that, of the good old Rudyard Kipling poem, If, which ends on the line, "Then you'll be a man, my son." So very relevant to this. It says that, I think there's that line in it about treating victory and failure as the same old frauds that they are, as well. And that's pretty much my attitude to football as well. You know, okay, if they get kicked out, they get kicked out, who cares? So you keep a balance in there. But ultimately it's that sort of, for me, that's a space I've created, and actually very late in life as well, to do that. So that's I don't really know if that's taken it anywhere, but you know.
No, I think it's really important because it's about self-awareness, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about what is the thing that gives me this recharging time, or this space from always being switched on, always delivering, always giving out to myself or other people or work. So knowing or deciding on what works for you, I think it's half the battle. Lots of people don't get to that ever. So no, I think it's brilliant, and it's an unusual example. I know for somebody not to particularly like football to go and watch it, but I totally get it that if it does what you need it to do, then brilliant.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I do like football. It's just
Right.
I'm not absolutely mad on. I'm not one of these
don't
people.
care who wins.
Don't really care. No, absolutely. Yeah.
It makes me think of so 2 years ago I had a revelation in my life. I started watching Love Island. Yeah. Right. I see the guys in the office were like, "You watch Love Island?" I was like, "I love it." Right. I absolutely love garbage TV. Like passionately. And the thing is that, which is kind of ironic working in my industry, which is producing, engaging digital content. But anyway, because a lot of people in my industry are like film buffs that like only watch like, really intelligent documentaries and all sort, And I'm like, Love Island, amazing. Big Brother when it was on. But I think it kind of reminds me of what you're saying. It's like, I suppose for me, it's like, I'll sit there and I'll watch an hour of that and I'll get passionately annoyed about the buffoons and their stupid decisions, and I'll have all of these opinions and I'll vent and I'll get my acid tongue and I'll be like, and then come the end of it, I'll be like, well, that's just great, that's like therapy. But it's almost a bit like that's my opportunity to get all of that out and to feel those feelings about stuff, and that's a safe place to do that because it doesn't matter, do you know what I mean? It's just like garbage TV. I don't know these people, and I'd rather be like that about that than get like that in work, or feel like that about a client or one of my kids doing something and getting annoyed. I'd rather get annoyed at the people on the TV and sort of vent that stuff, and that's my moment to kind of detach and sort of, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm speculating. Maybe maybe I just love this show. It's just gold. It's just gold. Can't believe these people exist. Starts on Monday, by the way.
I think Tim was saying as well, with myself, it's the last hour, 2 hours a night, it's my me time. Doesn't matter what's on, I'll watch it. It could be Love Island. I might not be invested in it, but I'll just watch it, just take my mind off things. Whatever's on, it might be repeats of Doctor Who, it could be anything what's on. But that 1 or 2 hours before going to sleep is my time. That's when I relax. That's the whole day, the whole week, whatever it is. That's it, calming down, go to sleep, get up, start again, start afresh. So I see when you're coming from, that's like, I have to have, if I don't have my last 1 or 2 hours by myself, then I don't get good night's sleep. I won't get goodness. I just need that time to calm down, cool, that's it, go to sleep.
It's funny because of, this is me like feeling old, right? Because I love history channels. Nice. And watching documentaries and figuring out how the world is made and how it used to be and how it is now and all those comparisons, and that intrigues me. And I think it's just like where we are at the moment as society, where we are at the moment, the way people's way of thinking are, and with all the politics and all the other nonsense that's going on, it's just like baffles me where we are right now. But I always think, how did we used to behave? And that kind of keeps me occupied, and that's like an interest for me, sort of thing. So some people might have a hobby of train spotting or whatever and comparing things. I like comparing how we are now and how we used to be. And you go back and you think, yeah, there's a lot of things that we can learn from the way it was, Yeah, and yeah, it is. It kind of, you switch off from, the kind of stressful day you've had and the things that are kind of on your mind, through the day, or just the responsibility of your family and the duties and roles. And, I think we're all kind of quite have that common kind of understanding. But yeah, I think that's my kind of. And the other thing I got into was, I wasn't into, as I say, I love playing football. I wasn't into really watching football and stuff. And then only maybe last few years I started getting into Match of the Day and watching the Premier League. And before I used to try to do it because everyone else done it, and you'd meet them and they'd be talking about it and you felt left out and stuff like that. And I tried it just didn't work. But I don't know, it just naturally came about, and I actually enjoy it. Yeah, so that's my kind of two things. I would say it's it releases me from a stressful day.
So it sounds like balance and release is essential in everyone's life to recoup, to re-energize, is what I'm hearing.
Re-energize or just let go for that moment, because some days are very kind of like mundane or repetitive, and you're going to face the same thing again the next day. So you just need that kind of release. Yeah.
Like a kind of a place to sort of mentally put yourself for a period of time that isn't where you are for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Like see, yeah, kind of, yeah, a men's cave, but for your mind.
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of like, I spend at work, I'm at work and I'm just like on, and I'm constant, it's constant. Come home, kids, bed, all that. So, and sometimes it's nice just, for your mind to be elsewhere and not be thinking about all that sort of stuff. And I suppose it's just finding something that is going to hold your attention for that period of time to allow you to distract you enough that you aren't thinking about that sort of thing. Because you were saying about not sleeping, like that's the time that I don't sleep, is when I can't turn off, because I'm just thinking constantly about, I've got a million things to do, I need to do this, I need to do that. I think that becomes a problem when you don't have that time that thing to distract you. It's much easier, I've found in the past, to sleep when I've had something to distract me from all of the other rubbish that I need to deal with. So there's like distracts you for a bit, allows you to get away from it, and then I find it easier to sleep personally.
My wife's and the kids have went away for the weekend somewhere, right? And there's this realization. It's like, well, whatever the case may be, it might have been they're having a sleepover or away to the in-laws or whatever, but they're away and the house is empty, and I think, wow, sanctuary. My house.
Silence.
Do what I want to do. Switch the TV on when I want. Eat what I want. Open the fridge and have what I want. And like they come back and go, "Oh, do you miss me?" And I'm like, "No." No. And they think, "What kind of father are you? Can't your kids are away for the day, a couple of days, and you didn't have any." No.
I didn't miss you. I'm glad you're back. But I didn't miss you.
No.
I've got this horrible image of you now as a kind of a Homer Simpson sitting there in his underpants with a can of beer.
That's it. That's it.
Absolutely wonderful.
I treasure those moments now, and it's only now that I begin to realise it. I don't know why that is. Maybe work's the responsibilities more, and I appreciate having time to myself now, whereas I never used to be like that. But seeing that, if like I've been away with yourself, we went to Morocco, we were away for 5 days, being away from my family in that respect, I miss my family deeply. It's very, very weird. It's not just being it's like there's two kind of concepts of being away. One's travelling away from the country, out the country, away from it distance wise. Another is they're away and they'll be back sort of thing, and you're in your house and you're in your space, and you can do what you want, and you just feel, this is great.
You still need one surrounding still and all that.
It seems bad, but no, it's great when I go away for a couple of days. It really does.
You know they're going to watch this, right?
So the outlet, you said something really interesting, because I was going to ask, does it make a difference for you if you're away just for a few days in the same vicinity where you safely know where they're going to be and they're going to come back, versus being away, and then on top of that being away with your mates, you know, your buddies, your male pals? Is there a difference of the getaway for you on your own self rejuvenation or family wise?
Yeah, for me it is, because even if I'm away, when I go away with my friends and stuff like that, I'm sort of still concerned. I'm not completely like relaxed and enjoying being away, if you know what I mean. I'm still consciously kind of do miss them, and that weighs on me a little bit as well. I'm wanting to get this holiday quickly over with so I can return back to them. I don't know why that is. It's very strange, but I do feel that, and it's quite interesting because my wife says the same thing. When she goes away, she kind of misses being away from myself, and even before she goes, and you know, she's quite anxious about, I've already missed you, I'm not even away, that kind of thing she'll say. And likewise myself, you know, if I know I'm going to go away somewhere, then I'm already anxious, I already miss him, and I'm not even away.
So let me ask you this. I know women, when they leave their children and their partners and they go away, of course they miss them. And I'm stereotyping again for a big group of people. However, they give each other or themselves permission to be there, to be in the moment, to rejuvenate, because that's what they've either earned or chosen to do for themselves. Self-care, self-love, whatever it may be. Does that translate for men in the same way?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone deserves to have their space and go away and do their thing, sort of thing. But I think it's just that natural bond. I think it just, for me anyway, personally.
I have to go away for work a bit. So it's not like I'm going away to have fun. And I think, I don't know, there's that kind of, there's always this sort of thing in the back of my head, like, where, you know, you deeply miss your family. And I do, because when I'm working away, I'm like, well, this is rubbish. Because you basically go back to like an empty hotel room. And yeah, cool, it's nice to sit there in your underpants and watch TV or whatever. But, I mean, that kind of wears off after like an hour. And then you're like, well, I'm just sat here in my underpants watching TV. I'm bored, Love Island's not on. So it's kind of, you know, and then at that point, I think because there's not a distraction, I end up sort of thinking, well, you know, with 3 kids, you know, things are probably quite manic at home because, like, you know, we provide a lot of support to each other. So when my wife's on her own, I'm then starting to get a bit like, I start thinking about, okay, how's she getting on? She's probably telling me she's fine, but actually, like, you know yourself. I know what it's like dealing with the kids on them, you know, and she's probably having to deal with all sorts, and they can be a bit of a handful, and, you know, especially if they're unwell or whatever, like, which seems to always tie in with whenever I go away for work. It always seems to be one of them's ill. And so that then starts to play on your mind. I don't find that the easiest, to be honest, to deal with. So
is it the worry then?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And knowing that probably by the time I get back, it's unlikely I'm going to walk through the door and it to be like a welcome home, I'm really pleased to see you because I've missed you. It's going to be, it's going to be like, you know, the place is on fire. You know, take them. I need an hour on my own to cry in a dark room, sort of thing. And so you sort of end up like, oh yeah. And that's nobody's fault. That's just life. Do you know what I mean? And then the other side of that is like going away with your mates. And then honestly, like, I think there's, if I'm being honest, despite the go away and have fun with your pals and all that sort of stuff, regardless of what she might say, there's definitely a amount of guilt that comes in there, just regardless. Because it's like, it's really difficult to shut off and actually just have fun with your mates, because you know it's all probably kicking off.
It must be that thing where, obviously, when you're with your wife and kids, you can never let go of that responsibility now. It's different when you were young, you were single, you know, you didn't have those responsibilities or those kind of connections, so you were free to go with your mates and actually enjoy it. But that phase seems to be over, you know, and it's a bit of a task trying to go enjoy yourself with your friends now.
It is a
Do you know what I mean? Rather than actually enjoying it. But saying that, sometimes the idea of going on holiday with my wife, which I have done, that could be stressful as well for me.
Absolutely. Basically, having kids is stressful.
Yeah, but going abroad and holiday, and when, you know, you need to figure things out, you know, on the fly, you know, if things go not exactly to plan, it'd be quite stressful. And then the things like, there's little habits, like my wife, she hates going to hot countries, and you're like, that is what you want to go. You want to go out to the sun and enjoy the weather. We're in Scotland, it's always raining, it's always miserable. You want blue skies and a bit of sun, you know, and kind of, but she's like, she gets frustrated. So you're on holiday and she's flustered that it's too hot and I can't take a seat. And you're like, God, I'm here on holiday, let's just enjoy it, please, you know. So it's not a win-win situation in any manner. It's
So how much does guilt and responsibility play on your mindset as a man, as a provider, is what I'm hearing, as a let me make sure that everybody's taken care of approach, even on holiday, impact your own health, your own mindset?
I think we've kind of touched on the fact that we kind of find our spaces, our time, where we can kind of say, this is my time, and that perhaps helps you kind of just forget things for a moment, all your responsibilities, just put them aside. The kids are asleep, the wife's asleep, whatever, and you know they're safe, so you could just forget about it and just enjoy yourself, and that's your kind of me time. But you know, it's you can never be take that element of that responsibility away completely and be free from it. Well, I personally can't. I can't imagine that.
So I don't have children, so completely different dynamic on this.
Yeah.
In that I don't feel guilt in this, and in fact, my wife and I have now come to an understanding where actually we will go off on separate holidays every now and again, and that's healthy. You know, I literally do not want to go crawling up the side of Italian volcanoes for 2 weeks. You know, that's just not me. I'd be bored to tears on that, but that's her thing. Same as she wouldn't particularly like to go bar crawling in New England. I'm very happy to do that, you know, because I've got tons of friends over there and that kind of thing. So I think, but neither of us feel guilt about that, and it's actually recognised as a perfectly, you know, good recharging moment. But I appreciate it's completely different circumstances, and I think the children aspect of it presumably is the fundamental difference there.
Yeah. Although, you know, you're a couple, your interests are not necessarily always going to be the same.
Absolutely.
So it's great to get away and her to do the things that she wants to do,
Yes.
and for you to get away to do what you. If that works, that would be great. I mean, I kind of see that happening, to be honest, where I am. But you know, the idea, I can understand that completely. Yeah.
Something you said also reminded me, I did a focus group years and years ago. It was promoting images of Tunisia as a holiday destination. And there's a broad range of people there. And there was one image, and it was of a golf course that people really responded to. And I dug into it, and it turns out the reason why this image was popular is because people thought, it's not a complete desert there. It's going to be a bit cooler, which means my kids are not going to be screaming in my ears all time long, and I'm going to have to put them over with, you know, sort of sun cream and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's resonating with me, and it's one of those things. I wouldn't have got that, but you know, it's just you mentioned the hot climate kind of thing, and the responsibility and the things that different ways of looking at different destinations, I guess.
Yeah, and you mentioned freedom, you know, the freedom of youth that we have that you kind of blow when you're a kid, and it goes too fast. But for me, I think that idea of freedom from responsibility which you, as a father, I feel you can't ever switch off. And my older daughter, who's an adult herself, and we've talked about this quite carefully, because I think you have to be serious about stepping into that. And so that's one of the things that we've talked about in terms of her ever wanting to have kids or not. But yeah, that responsibility, I think temporarily men do seem to be able to switch it off. I know lots of guys who switch it off full stop and therefore are absent as fathers, and you know, how they deal with that themselves is obviously their own thing. But you do seem to find this common thread of you know, I am now never able to switch off from are they okay? So in terms of adding pressure to modern life, which is quite difficult in terms of keeping up with expectations, being the right kind of person, the right kind of worker, the right kind of person on social media, which are all there niggling away at you, even if you don't care what people think of you, even if you're not bothered about, you know, what response you get, it's there nipping away. So I think once you add all those responsibilities up, it can be difficult to keep an even keel for people in terms of their mental well-being and how they feel about themselves. And again, I suppose recognising when things start to go awry with that and how you respond is the key, isn't it? Because you can spiral quite quickly. And other people are not always going to notice what's going on inside your head unless they know you really well and they're incredibly empathic. How are they supposed to know if you aren't aware of those changes happening and you can't speak about them, which most men again tend to throw into the mix. You know, I don't want to speak about this stuff, it's private. What will the reaction be if I ask for help? Certainly in my experience, having disclosed, you know, a problem at work of being having an episode of depression, and within a week had been sacked from that piece of work. It's a real thing that people don't know how to deal with it. Over the last 10 years, I think there's been an improvement as more people have spoken out about the numbers of people who suffer from mental ill health or a lack of well-being. It's improving slowly, but most people are terrified of you saying to them, I'm not happy or I'm struggling, because then they've got to do something about it. Or at least they've to listen properly, or they've to think of the right words to respond with. So I think it's a two-way thing. I think men do struggle a bit with stepping out of that I will cope with this. But I do think there's a general fear, and particularly in UK culture where we're a bit reserved and we don't like fuss and bother. You A, don't like making that for other people, and B, you don't really feel comfortable when it's presented in your lap either.
I don't have any children nor I'm married, so I don't feel any guilt whatsoever where I go. But in my case, I'd say it's my parents. I'm quite elderly, my dad's about 80 now, mum's quite late 70s as well, so when I'm away I do feel like, okay, she's taking the medication, mum gets insomnia as well. Is my dad alright? He's okay, because he has tended to wake her up like 4 or 5 times a night. Sometimes you'll hear the TV on at 3 o'clock in the morning or something, random time, and he's a bit deaf as well, so he's got the volume on max. I can hear clearly from my room, and he's still sitting there like from the TV. So I do, when I'm away, I do feel, when it's in the house, it's okay if I'm not asleep, and I know that's okay. But when I'm travelling abroad, there is that, okay, has he done it? Is she okay? He's left the cooker on or not, because he has a tendency to do that as well. Sometimes he gets to lock the door. So it's always my mind. So I do find that a bit, even if I know someone else is there, my sister comes over, I still don't feel quite safe, because I know unless I do it myself, then I'm more comfortable with it. So there is that feeling as well. You know, so they kind of film a wife and kids role. Yeah.
And that's an interesting point as well, isn't it, about being in control, and the extent to which that influences your perspective of how things are going. because I know as soon as the different parts of my life start to get away from me a bit, that kind of pressure, and I suppose as an example, financial pressure over the years, times at which I found myself struggling to get by, everything else seems much worse, and I've been more short with people, more irritable, more distracted from things that I want to focus on, and again worrying about saying to people, I'm struggling with this, just compounds it somehow, and it's embarrassing as well. You know, those kind of issues where you, at points in your life, you're saying to people, well, I can't come out for a drink because I don't have any money, and I don't mean I don't have a fiver, I mean I don't have any money. It's embarrassing, and so I think all these things really mingle together. But the control issue for me, like you say, you know when you have got this, and if that's in doubt at all, then things start to get a bit shaky.
If I think back to the times in my life where I've sort of had shaky moments, would like financial, like the times where financially I'm struggling. It's funny because you look back on it now, and like there's times where like I've had like proper like meltdown moments. About like, for example, like £1,000 debt or something, and then you look at it now and you're like, it seems ridiculous, because like I could find £1,000, like, because I can see clearly of that scenario now, I could find £1,000 pretty easily. When you think about it, you could be like, well, I probably know at least 5 people immediately that if I literally sent them a text now, they would give me £1,000 to borrow.
Yeah.
It just seems ridiculous to get so worked up about it, but see, at the time, you're like, you just can't see the wood for the trees.
What do you think causes that tunnel vision?
I don't know. I think it's the lack of control. I think you feel like you've lost control, and I think you feel like everything's just gotten away from you, and then the only thing you can focus on is that thing that you've lost control of, and that's the only thing that your attention is focused on. So then everything else, like you say, you're short with people and all sorts, because there's times where that's happened to me, and I've just been like snappy and emotional and like all sorts of stuff, and then and in hindsight you're like, it just seems like the most ridiculous thing. I remember once I was in Glasgow, I was trying to move out of a flat with a guy that I absolutely detested living with. He was basically an alcoholic. Didn't have any friends in Glasgow really. I just met my now wife. I got swine flu, and then I'd saved up. My bank account got robbed, defrauded, so it was cleared out. So in the meantime, I was paid cash in a bar, which I kept in my bedside table, which he stole, or someone stole, and that was what I was going to use as deposit to move out of the flat. And then proper meltdown, proper meltdown. And I remember phoning my dad just in tears, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's £600. In the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world. And he was just like, I'll send you the £600. And I was like, yeah. Okay. It's just totally ridiculous. But see, at that moment, I was just like, that's the end. Do you know what I mean? It's just everything has just gone to shit. That's how it felt. And it was just ridiculous. But yeah, I don't know.
What led you to ask for help?
Nowhere else to turn. I think I'd exhausted every single conceivable option that I had. I think I didn't know what else to do. I was like, accounts are empty, cash is gone, alcoholic, feel like death because of the flu, need to get out of this flat, can't do this anymore. Pick up the phone, And I always, I don't know whether it's a pride thing, but I really don't like asking my dad for help for money, even though I know that he'll always give it to me. But I don't know. I just want to be independent, fiercely so. So I'll always wait until like the last minute before I send the signal flare. You know what I mean? I'm the one in the Titanic stood on the tip as it's going down, like, you know. But yeah, I don't know what that's about.
I'm the same as well. When I was growing up, my dad would always say to me, like, do you need any money, whatever? No, I'm fine. And then when I'd have some student debt or some problems, I would try everyone else or any other property, anything else, my dad last. And a lot of time, mine sorted out before, but I just didn't want to ask. It was a pride thing as well, because I wanted to be the man. I shouldn't have to go back to my dad and ask, I need some money now. That's what I felt at that time.
Probably you didn't want to let your dad down either.
That's the thing, let him down either. You know, that's what I felt. You know.
Yeah, because you want to feel like you've flown the nest.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to feel like you have to go back and be like, you know, I flew the nest.
Yeah.
Well, about that. Turns out not so good at flying after all.
You know, you want to keep your parents proud that you've achieved something and you've made something of your life, and perhaps it's that kind of way where, oh bugger, you know, this is going to really kind of make my dad worry, like, well, what have you been doing with your life? You know, that you come up to me and you're, not that he wouldn't help, you know, they would help, but, you know,
and then it's the future as well. After that, it's the future. So it's like it's setting a precedent for like questioning everything in future when things are all right, and you're like, no, things are fine. That was just a blip. Now I don't need you questioning everything I do in future.
So how does that impact your mindset then, and your own perception of your identity as a man?
You just can't doubt yourself as well, and like you're saying as well, is you make that one mistake, it's never forgotten. You're always reminded that now, and then when you go forward, there is that a lot of comment here and there. You kind of remember that time, you know.
I think it's a pride thing. I do think it's a pride thing. Don't know.
I'm just thinking that, you know, there are situations I think we'll always find ourselves in which aren't going to be suitable. And I think that's inevitable. You're never going to be absolutely perfect. You're never always going to get the result that you want. But I mean, you found the solution by just picking up the phone and saying, your dad, I need the help. I think as guys, perhaps we don't do enough of that. I think there's options out there where there are people that do care for you, but it's making that approach, you know, making that admittance to say, I've got a problem or I'm in this situation. And I totally understand, you know, I would just keep, you know, accumulating the debt, but not asking, or go to my wife and go, you know what, things are a bit tight right now, or whatever, you know, just my overdraft's going bigger and bigger and bigger. I'm just waiting for that break in the job to kind of then, it will just clear it out. But that period of time that's there, it's obviously putting pressure on, and I'm hiding it, and I don't want them to know. And I know perhaps if I just put my hand out and ask for help, that it will resolve that problem, and, you know, and I wouldn't be in that situation. But it's admitting it, I think. It's admitting that you've fallen into that place, sort of thing. But then life's never ever going to, you know, you're never ever going to get the result that you want all the time.
I wonder if there's like a social, you know, we're used to the sort of construct that, like, you know, man provides, woman does all the home stuff, and so then there's this, whether you're consciously doing it or not, you feel emasculated by that process.
That you're asking, you know.
And you're like, I should be the provider here.
But who says you should?
Society. Well, what I mean is we perceive society to say that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But many families have the extreme opposite framework.
Mm-hmm.
So why allow the should, the musts, the have
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
define who you are?
Our fathers were providers, and they worked, and that was what they saw themselves as, and their fathers before them. And you know, a lot of the research says that before you're 10 years old, you kind of who you are in your beliefs and your core values. So if all I see at home is a dad who thinks he's the provider and he's in charge and he says what goes, then that's going to take a lot of years of working out of.
It's conditioning.
Yeah, it's conditioning. So traditionally it has been there. We know, and we talk about it more about the way that men control the world. It's moving, but it will take time, and you know, we're creatures of habit. We really are. We get into a comfort zone and we stay with it. And I think for me as a white UK guy, I've got a comfortable life. I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, I can buy food for the family every month. We pay our gas bill. We go on holiday once a year. So there's not really any problems. So my take on life is that, you know, what am I going to change? And how am I going to show my children that things can be different if I'm in a comfortable zone that I don't need to do anything really about?
So is that the same concept of if it's not broken, don't fix it?
Yeah, and I think that lots of us just carry on with that conditioning because we don't have to fight against anything. And I mean, as Alan Learcat, you talked about being second generation immigrants to the country, and therefore, you know, you were balancing two sets of expectations. You fight against that, you change things. For a lot of us here who don't have to think about that stuff, you don't ever change, so the conditioning continues.
So do you need a trigger, a catalyst to create that shift for you, do you think? And if so, do you have any catalysts or shifts that you've personally experienced that created that awareness?
I'm not sure it always needs to be massive, that you get a sort of road to Damascus moment, but everybody here has talked about moments in their life, either big or small, where they have either said, I am asking for help, or I need to change something. The opportunities are presented to us in life to learn and to see what can be done differently. And it's whether we take those or not. It's the same with everything, you know, work opportunities, relationship opportunities. If you react to what's put in front of you and take notice and see how that interaction goes, then you tend to move forward with it. And things change. They don't always change for the better or worse, but they change. And it's what you do with that, isn't it? And as, like I say, as a comfortable life continues, how easy is it to make those changes when perhaps you don't need to?
So it's interesting that you say that, Tim, because Luke, the certain circumstance that you explained, that you shared with us, could drive someone to suicide potentially, feeling like if they didn't have that person, that flare, you know, as the Titanic is sinking, to shoot it up and know that someone will see it. It could potentially, So, you know, with male suicide rates far surpassing women's suicide rates, it's a major issue. So what do you do about that? What advice would you give our viewers?
Yeah, I don't know, like it's a funny one because, you know, when the sort of subject of suicide gets broached, like there's, I think I've only ever known of, I think 5 suicides of people that I know, or have known, I should say. Only one of those is female.
Proving the stats.
I don't know. I think mental health is a massively complex subject. I don't have the answer. I don't know, to be honest. One thing I feel like I've learned myself from the times, like those scenarios that I found particularly difficult, is that as like anything, when you do something a few times, you sort of, I guess, you learn what that process looks like. So when there's these moments in my life that I felt like it's all been falling apart, I've learned what that starts to look like, and eventually what the outcome is, right? And that's the benefit of hindsight. And unfortunately, I think the problem is that there's maybe not enough conversation about those moments, so that there is a broader awareness of, like, actually, it will be all right. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm maybe trivializing it slightly, but like it, you know, with the benefit of hindsight and the times that I've had, in my experience, it's been okay. Do you know what I mean? But in the moment, like, it's been the worst thing in the world. Yeah. But now I know that if ever, like, you know, I'm at a period in my life where, like, right now is quite stressful, I would argue. But I know that, like, if it got to it and I was like back up against the wall, you know what, like, I'll be fine. I'll work it out. And the only reason I can say that is because I've done it X amount of times before. But I just think, like, I don't think there's enough conversation about those times, so that when someone's faced with that for the first time, they think, actually, this isn't the end of the world, because this happens a lot. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But like I say, it's easier said than done, because see, when you're in that moment, like, man, it's like that is all you can see, you know, and it's like really difficult. Like, when people are like, oh, just like talk about it, it's like, try to, like, I could, like, try thinking about that as, like, at that point in your life is, like, impossible.
I recognise it in myself now when I'm, you know, going to get down, but I also feel privileged now in that I can kind of recognise it in others. And I think, you know, this can be almost textbook, and I'm sure you can add to that one as well. It was, and this was illustrated to me very recently. I went to see a film. I haven't seen this film since my childhood, and the film was, you know, quite a happy sort of fairy tale. Rewatching it after so many years and having gone through lots of stuff, this film is a textbook bleak example of somebody cracking up and going on to the verge of suicide, and that film is It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of the most powerful films when you actually do watch it from the other side. So, but anyway, you watch for things like people with flash of temper, for them just withdrawing, for them even body language and the posture and all that kind of thing, and you can kind of add that together. So I think sometimes, yes, there needs to be a conversation, and I think in some respects we can almost be, once you've gone through that, you can be in the sort of the vanguard of actually spotting it, and not waiting for the conversation to start, but acting either to start the conversation or to, even if it's not the conversation, getting that person back on the straight and narrow again.
Yeah. I mean, definitely, like, there's, you know, recently a friend of mine who sort of aired concerns that he had, and I mean, I won't mention any details because it's too personal, but that was definitely, I had a conversation with my wife, and I was like, I think I need to spend some time with this person. Like, we need to organise some more time to go and do these things, and to meet up more often, because I think there's things that are playing on his mind that I suspect he's not quite worked out how to vocalise properly. And if I don't do it, then who else is going to do it? Do you know what I mean?
And it takes other men,
I think so, yeah.
and other people in the community to just say, hey, I'm noticing.
Try and spot it.
Yeah, I'm noticing X, Y, whatever, Z or Z.
Yeah.
In whatever country that may be.
And even just the act of, or the feeling of being noticed, I think is a start on a it's an offer, isn't it, of, you know, here's communication, do you want to take it? And that, for people who are in the depths of this stuff, like Luke, you were saying, you know, when you're in the moment, how do you get out of it? Just that small kindness, I think, is a start, and it's a human connection that, however macho we want to be, we're still humans, and people can still reach us. Usually, there's complications, and there's people who are outside this smaller range, let's say, of ups and downs, who we might not save. But I think, yeah, looking out for your mates, looking out for your relatives, noticing things in colleagues, and being brave enough just to say, I have noticed this change. Are you all right?
Because it could be a lifeline.
Yeah. So the offer, there's a balance, and I don't think talking works for everybody, but if you make the offer, you've done a great thing.
Yeah, I don't think you can just rely on listening, like, and just sort of saying, oh, you know, I'm open to, like, if somebody wants to come and talk to me, then, like, they can always come and talk to me. Because, like, I know firsthand, like, you know, when you're in that moment, it's like, you know, you don't want to talk to people. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's how you feel about it.
Because the shame and the guilt is too much.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah, absolutely. So, I don't know. I think it's important. I do think it's important to be more aware of your surroundings and the people that are around you, and try and just sort of be conscious of, I guess, their body language and their language as well, you know, and see what things they are saying and how you perceive them to be coping, maybe.
I think also it's just taking it on from the pride and the shame bit as well, and I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think when you're in that situation, you have a profound sense of being unlovable, that you're a worthless piece of dirt, and it's not pride or shame, it's just complete, you know, self-detestation, which means that you kind of think, why would anybody want to help me? And I think this, when it's dealt with well, you get this thing which was explained to me once by a theologist, the Christian concept of grace, of unearned love, which is what you're talking about with the lifeline, and that kind of thing, just being able to go out there and sort of start to reel this person in, even though they feel, why would anybody want anything to do with me? And that comes from a surprising number of places. Your example there of being able to phone up somebody, that's grace, isn't it? You know, you might have lost all of this money because you've been an idiot. You might have put it all on a horse or something like that, or something foolish, but you still know that even though you've been an idiot, these people will still be there to back you up.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think all you're saying as well is to be self-aware of your surroundings, like you were saying, and judging people's body languages or lack, or you haven't heard from them in a long time, just pick up the phone and say, how's things, and you're alright, you know. I think yourself as well, I mean, you were in a very bad situation as well. I mean, I was just hearing that, was quite tense hearing that, and thankfully you had dad there, but there may be people out there won't have that situation, who would they turn to, you know?
I think it's very easy, but sometimes for people to just feel like a failure and not to share that aspect of their side, and even know that you may phone up and ask repeatedly, look, are you okay, because you don't seem yourself, until that person themselves kind of open up out from there and admit that, look, I need help. It's very difficult to crack that, but because really you're just holding it. Look, I really don't want them to know how bad the situation are, because they do feel that sense of failure, and it's probably massive for them, you know, and they don't want people to perceive them in that way. And I think it's good that there seems to be more kind of direction towards the awareness of people's mental health, and especially guys talking about it and it being okay, and not to be ashamed to talk about it. And the more that's kind of brought to the fore, I think those situations where people find themselves in will start thinking, oh, it's normal to go out and say, look, I need help. But it's not normal at the moment. It's still a struggle for people. It's still, there is a stigma. It's still a struggle for people to open up that way, admit that. And as you say, it could be their own fault. It could be, self-inflicted.
Absolutely.
And that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
It's what an idiot I am to get myself in that situation. That kind of repetitively, like, I could have avoided that, and you're overlooking it over and over again in your mind. And then you're thinking, there's no way I'm going to anyone because it was self-inflicted. And all these ideas, so yeah, I think it has to be made more aware. These conversations I've brought out, look, it's okay, people do make mistakes.
Yeah. And for me, one of the things that somebody taught me quite a while ago, and not to get too philosophical about it, but the difference between being and doing, and largely in modern life, you're expected to do all the time, and you're now expected to do things presented perfectly to everybody and do it all right. So it makes these feelings of failure and guilt even worse somehow. But if we can shape the conversation that, just being a human has value, and everybody has that who's a human, and it sounds a bit hippie-ish and a bit lovey-dovey, but that's what it's got to be like, because even when I mess things up, I'm still me, and I'm still here, and I can sort it out. Like you said, Luke, I know I'll get through this. And when somebody's in that despairing part of I can't be loved, if you approach it from you have value just being as you are now, then they don't need to give you anything. There is no expectation on them to do anything than just be with you.
I think you were saying as well, like we were talking about at that stage in life where you choose the people that you want to be around a bit more carefully. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not out to just make mass amount of friends. Like, I'd rather spend time with people that I really want to spend time with. That's what we were talking about earlier. And I think, like what you're saying there, it's about that, being able to offer that as somebody to actually enjoy being around, like for your friends and that sort of thing. That is definitely a valuable thing you contribute. It's not a financial thing, it's nothing other than just being good conversation. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that, I mean, certainly for me, like, I'm really picky now about the people that I hang out with because I have no time.
Yeah.
No time.
Yeah.
So when I go to the pub for a beer, I'm like really fussy about who I will do that with, because like I remember there was somebody who was like, oh, we should get a beer. It was like someone that I'd not seen for like 10 years. And I'm like thinking in my head, like, with all due respect, if I'm going to go out for a beer, I'm going to go out with one of my actual friends. And that sounds like a really harsh thing to say, but like I have a small group of friends that I really like seeing. And those are the people that I want to spend time with, because do you know what? That's a valuable thing that we give to each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, you can't buy that, to be honest.
And it's a release as well, because when you're with your friends, you can forget things. You can just, openly share things and have those discussions. Whereas with someone that you don't really get on with that well, you don't know too well, it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's like hard work.
It is work.
And it's like, I just came out to have that drink and just chill out. And now I need to sit and be polite and listen to you and try to figure out what kind of conversation I'm going to have with you. Whereas with the actual friends that know me, they can just have a banter. They can say something stupid to me, or
It reminds me of my wife. I come back from the pub and my wife goes, "What did you talk about?" And I'm like, and she'll be like, did you talk about this? Like all of these things that are happening in our life. Did you talk about this? No. Talk about this? No. They're having a baby. Did you talk about that? No. What did you talk about? I have no idea. We were in the pub for 3 hours. I have literally no idea what we talked about. But it was brilliant. Like, you know,
That scenario plays out at our house as well. Exactly the same.
yeah.
So it's amazing how, Tim, you brought up the being and the doing, and all of you have touched upon it briefly and in more detail as well. So sometimes when somebody is in a bad place, just being with them, not even talking to them necessarily, but just being in that space, to hold the space with them can be just as powerful
Yeah, big
as
time.
asking for help.
Big
Or
time.
saying, giving that sense of grace, is there something going on? Let's talk.
Big time.
Just to let them know they're not alone. They've got company. Speaks volumes to people who are in desperate situations, because the one thing about when you're in that situation, you just feel you are alone. There's no one else in the world.
It's you in the world.
Yeah.
And just like you said brilliantly, Tim, everybody is loved in their own way.
I guess the advice I would have is to recognise the symptoms of mental anguish in others, and that would include things like personality changes, flashes of anger when that didn't appear beforehand, compulsive behaviour, that kind of thing, to recognise it in yourself and to recognise it in others, so that the healing can begin, or at least you can start to address the problem.
Don't let that opportunity go. If you recognise someone, don't say, someone else will sort it out. I think step up and do something about it, because I'm sure you would regret it if something did happen that, you thought that you could have had a hand in making a change and making a difference. So don't let it be someone else's problem that they can deal with it. Or
I would say regarding mental health issues that men overwhelmingly tend to try and self-medicate with either distractions, with drink, with drugs, with other things that are not helpful in the long term. So I would say to any guys that are feeling like they're struggling, try not to add to that with behaviour that will damage you, even though it's good in the short term to be out of that space. It's much harder but much better for who you are to try and take small baby steps of things that will actually help. So get out, get up in the morning, have a shower, try and do some exercise, try and say hello to somebody. Just tiny things that are not adding to the damage that's already going on. And it's okay to be crap, it's okay to be a bit useless sometimes in your life, and you will change it.
I have to build those bonds and just share happy times with them as well, because once they're gone, they're gone. Once they're and it is a lot of times where, like my niece, I wish I'd spent more time with my niece as she's grown up and stuff like that, but I feel as if at that time it was my kind of youth and I was very, very selfish. It was about me.